Start with my greeting. Good morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in the UK and in Europe. Good early evening to our friends in the Middle East and India. Good evening to our friends in Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, and Australia. Nice to see you all. Before we have the Q&A section, I might talk a little bit about some recent pilgrimages that I did. I just share in case it's interesting or relevant to some people. Not that many monks talk about these kind of extracurricular spiritual activity. So it's nice for some of us to speak about it sometimes because it might be nourishing to some people. And then we will do the Q&A afterwards. So a few things come to mind. One is that this year seems to be a year for myself where aspirations to do pilgrimages is ripening. And that in itself is an interesting part of practice. If we set clear aspirations to do something, and if we make good karma, skillful karma, and we dedicate merit, and sometimes when we make good karma and dedicate merit, practicing meditation also makes good karma, and we can dedicate the merit from the meditation on occasion to specific aspirations. And so one thing that I have wanted to do for about 20 years is visit the four holy mountains of China. And probably not that many Theravadan monks that want to visit the four holy mountains of China, but I'm a little bit unusual in that regard. Probably past life imprints, I would assume. And but it's interesting to notice that it can take some time. This was the first time I've been invited to Wutai Mountain, and I have wanted to go for 20 years. So I was at Ajahn Anand's birthday at the end of March. I remember sitting in my room thinking, no, I really do want to go to Wutai. Maybe this would be a good year. We lost a few years because of COVID, and things are a bit weird after COVID for another year or so. And some students and friends in Singapore contacted me and said, Ajahn, we'd like to invite you to two of the other holy mountains, not Wutai, San and San. And so we did go to those two. That was convenient for the fellow who was helping to arrange the tour. He had some meetings nearby. So I said, oh, that's interesting. I was just thinking I wanted to go to Wutaishan. And then another friend offered, okay, well, since you want to go to Wutai after the pilgrimage to those other two mountains, then another friend offered, we can. And a young student acquaintance in Beijing was able to go, and a Singaporean man was able to go and do some reconnaissance and research, because in our mind, I had imagined Wutaishan as being one mountain and a bunch of monasteries on one mountain, but it's actually a large prefecture, a large area, mountainous area, and probably about 100 square kilometers with 100 monasteries and 2,000 years of Buddhist history. So it's not a simple matter. Where do you go when you go to Wutaishan? So there are certain places that are of significance, and other places more also interested in finding quieter places to meditate, etc. So it was very good that we had our connection over there in China. And all of the people who I traveled with, altogether we were 5, the other 4 people spoke Chinese. So that was helpful, and knew how to use the apps in the modern Chinese economy. A lot of things function with apps and things. So the different holy mountains in China are associated with different celestial bodhisattvas. So you have San is associated with Samantabhadra. San is associated with Siddhikapa. San is associated with Avalokiteshvara, and Wutaishan is associated with Manjusri. bodhisattva who is renowned for wisdom. So one of the valuable a valuable part of pilgrimage is when if you go to a place which is dedicated to a specific quality or a being that represents a certain quality, then you take that quality for that period of time as your focus. So it can be it's like a tuning fork, and you incline your mind, or you give your interest and you pay attention in that particular way. So Siddhigarbha Bodhisattva is renowned for having a particular pledge to helping beings in hell. And he has said that even though he has enough virtue to be liberated as an Arahant or a Buddha, he has said that he will not enter Nibbana until he has closed the doors of hell permanently. So we don't know if that's going to be possible. So Siddhigarbha may be there for a long time. But in that regard, he is uh, a wonderful example of the epitome of altruism taken to its ultimate extreme. And so when we think of someone like that, a being like that, with that kind of patience and metta, apparently his foremost qualities are unshakable optimism. So he really does believe it's possible, simply because beings have a Buddha potential, Buddha nature, a potential to liberate themselves. Then he believes it's possible to liberate them eventually. Another quality he has is unshakable optimism, which would be very useful in such a situation. So sometimes, if I'm having some challenges with a difficult character in my life, some karmas are ripening and some frustrating phenomenon, think of his example, and it can be helpful. One can ask oneself, can I stretch my altruism? Because given that Siddhigarbha is willing to be patient and personally committed to billions of beings, some of the most stubborn in the universe, can I be a little bit more patient with this one? I ask myself. In that regards, is a very good example. And Avalokiteshvara, one of the forms, is the goddess of compassion, or Kuan Yin, the very merciful, again very patient, beautiful image of tender, as we have in the Sutra on Loving Kindness. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart will I cherish all living beings. She's like the archetypal image of a mother who loves, but she sees everyone as her children. So again, these kind of, for those who are interested in cultivating Brahmavihara, the four divine abidings, we all do need to find skillful means to inspire us, to make it possible, to stretch our capacities, and these kind of examples. Luang Por Nan says it actually counts in the Theravada practice as Devanusati, recollecting devas, but they are the most virtuous among the devas, probably abiding in the Tushita heaven realm. And then Samantabhadra, I must admit, I don't actually know that much about him. And I think this is also quite common. There are probably thousands of very well-developed bodhisattvas, and different ones will be more famous in different periods of time, depending on their group karma and of the beings in the world at any one time. But I did go to his mountain anyway and climbed 4,500 steps and climbed down 6,000 steps in the rain, simply because I wanted to show my respect. It's like, I think the way it would have been in China for about 2,000 years of Buddhist history, once these four mountains became famous, I think it probably many monastics in China will have set the intention to visit each of these four mountains at some point. Just as Lord Buddha said, we should visit the four holy sites in India if we can. I think it was a part of people's practice in China to visit these mountains. And Manjusri is more famous in the Mahayana and the Vajrayana. He's famous. It's believed that if one recites his mantra, it will increase one's powers of intellect and also recollection. So one's study becomes more effective and help you remember. And apparently the little novice monks and nuns in Tibet on the day before their exams, so running down the hallways, reciting his mantra, and so that they get good grades. And among Chinese Buddhists, they do believe go and pay respects at Manjusri Mountain, and you'll have more likely have better test results. Because whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I do believe that there are particular types of merit that support particular outcomes. So it's possible. So normally during the rainy season retreat, uh, we try not to travel too much. Lord Buddha did make some exceptions. As long as you're back before the seventh sunrise, if you have a pressing or worthy reason to travel. One such reason is for the sake of helping lay people increase their faith and teaching. So I was also trying to increase the faith and encourage those four people who I was with. And I asked the monks in the monastery where I was living, who were all practicing quite well, quite harmoniously, diligently, if they would mind if I fulfilled this 20-year aspiration. They gave me their blessing. And it was wonderful, actually. So I did some research. Wutaishan is apparently 3,200 meters, Mount Wutai. But where we were, as I was saying, it's a mountainous area. Many of the holy sites there are in a valley at about 1,400 meters. And it's the top of the mountain around the valley. It's 3,000. So we all bought too many warm clothes. We were expecting temperatures between 5 and 15, and the temperatures were between 15 and 25. But it's always good to have enough warm things in case you need them. we didn't need as many as we bought. So I guess we went to about 10 different temples while we were there. And I must say the highways, I mean, China is a very interesting place. Modern China is a very interesting place because, and the experience is it's quite profound and there are a lot of things to take in. Like, for example, you may visit a temple that's 1,800 years old and still in pretty good shape, being repaired by several emperors. One of the things you see is large granite slabs that have the engravings of the particular emperor that renovated that temple. But when you walk in, you know that this place is like more than a millennia old. And the quality of the art and the craftsmanship is just stunning. So in Thailand, we can go and look at the ruins of Sukhothai from 900 years ago. There's just a few bricks, some crumbling mortar. Similarly, in Ayutthaya from 400 years ago. Okay, there might be some nice stucco, a bit more that you can see. But you go to these places in China, 1,800 years old, 1,500 years old, 1,400 years old. The Buddha statues are still there. The painting is still on the walls. The courtyard is still intact. The granite slabs from the emperors of several dynasties are in the courtyard. It's really quite amazing. And what's amazing, or what I appreciate about being able to visit those places, is when you feel the depth of the faith and the literally hundreds of millions of people that the Buddha's teachings have touched in this world since Lord Buddha attained enlightenment. It's really quite humbling and really quite touching. And then you see the way the best artisans of the millennia, of particular each generation, have created incredibly beautiful Buddhist art in honor of these beautiful qualities: purity, wisdom, compassion. And so that's really touching. But the other thing that's present in China, in modern China, is the moment you arrive and you come out of the gate, there are literally, I'm not exaggerating, 10 CCTVs directed at your face as you walk out of the airport gate. And then you get your fingers scanned, and then you get your face photographed, and then you get asked questions by the friendly immigration officer. And everywhere you look up there, oh, there's another camera. You look up there, oh, another camera. And I'm not going to lie, that's a bit creepy. And if you're traveling along the road at nighttime, flash, your photo has been taken. cameras are looking at who's driving along the roads. And so when you come into the historical area, which are oftentimes also national parks, there's kind of like a border check. You have to bring out your passport again. You have to do the finger scanning again, the face recognition again. It's like, show me your papers, please. And so the reality of modern life in China is also present to the extent that every room in every monastery and every courtyard and every veranda had a camera on it. And then something else had happened because it's very interesting because I feel very moved and very inspired and I want to sit. So I'm trying to find a place to sit. And a monk comes along and taps you on the shoulder and says, you can't sit here. So this is also an interesting experience that as a Buddhist monk who's inspired, who wants to demonstrate my faith, I'm not allowed to practice in certain ways. And this was interesting. This was obviously a policy because it happened everywhere. And the monks actually looked a bit scared, saying, no, 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 you can't do this here. And so there seems to be certain types of practice are tolerated. Wandering around muttering mantras is tolerated. 3 steps, 1 bow up mountains is tolerated. Waving incense sticks, praying for all beings is tolerated. Taking photographs outside, not inside the shrines, is tolerated. But if you try to sit somewhere, you will be asked to move along. So fortunately for myself, because I have 3 decades of meditation experience, I could put my mind into a kind of half meditating all the time state anyway. And I thought, okay, let's just see this as a creative challenge. I'm not going to let this rain on the parade, as it were. So I was often reciting mantras, and I'm also quite courageous and creative. So I was looking for opportunities to sit, and I found some. So, and then I had some nice experiences when I did. But it's just an interesting phenomenon where literally billions of dollars have been spent on renovating these Buddhist holy sites. They are beautiful, they are immaculate, and some places have been rebuilt because the ancient ones were destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. Some original buildings, some original artifacts have been preserved, but many have been rebuilt to look like the old ones, and they really do. So it's literally billions of dollars is being spent on the infrastructure and the aesthetic, and people are allowed to go and bow, offer incense, and pray. A sense I had was like it's like a tree with a lot of softwood and bark and lots of leaves, and it looks very beautiful, but not much heartwood or flowers or fruit. And one of the things I did was kept making prayers at these potent spiritual centers. May a full Buddhist practice be allowed to return to China. May the people of China be able to study and practice Buddhism, something that I made a prayer everywhere I went. And so at least there is the potential, when there's that much money going into the infrastructure, there is definitely the potential that things could change there. And I sincerely hope that they do. But another thing that's interesting sometimes happens in these places, because I generally feel that anyone who's a practicing Buddhist in this age has probably had some lives in India and some lives in China in the past, because that's where it was for a long, long, long time. That's where many of us will have cultivated dana, sila, and bhavana, so that we had the merit to meet the Buddhasasana, Buddha Dhamma again. So something that can happen on pilgrimage is you walk into a place which is 1500 or 1800 years old, and there's this kind of really striking sense of familiarity. And that did happen to me in one place. And it was an interesting experience where we were supposed to be going to several other places, and we're going to go to a certain monastery in the afternoon. But we met a monk at the bus stop who was spending his rainy season retreat in this monastery. And he said, let me take you to such and such a monastery, and I'll introduce you to this monk who's very learned and knowledgeable, and he can explain. So we changed our itinerary and we went to this particular place. Now, as it happens, I can't remember the name of it, of course. My brain isn't so good with names. But As it happens, this was the place where the Patimokkha, which is the monks' rules of discipline, were translated in China from the Indian to the Mandarin. And then the emperor of the day had said that the bhikkhus that go forth should go forth in this place. So probably for I don't know, 1,000 years, this was the place where the Buddhists the monks of the kingdom went forth. So suppose it's 1,000 monks a year for 1,000 years. You've got a million people may have gone forth there, and there were a lot of bhikkhunis in China as well. So maybe a million monks, a million nuns, and that place did have some potent sense of blessing. And I just kind of felt, oh gosh, this place feels familiar. I may have gone forth here. I did have that thought, and in one of my lives, and that may also be one of the reasons one has a feeling of I want to go to such and such a place. I want to go to such and such a place. If one has cultivated some virtue there in the past. Another thing I just wanted to mention was like getting a glimpse of how ancient peoples thought about their religion and their lives. When you come to there was a similar pattern in every single Chinese monastery, and that's that when you come through the gate, I noticed a few things. There's a little chapel which usually has an image of Maitreya in the laughing happy form, and the four kings. So the Chatu Maharaja, which is mentioned in the Dhammacakka Sutta, the four kings rejoiced at Anya Kondanya's attainment of stream entry, you will recall from the Dhammacakka Sutta. The Burma Devas rejoiced, and then the four kings rejoiced. And I think it's when you read the biography of the Buddha, there are occasions where the four kings come to guard and stand by the Bodhisattva as a young being, and also there's occasions where Sariputta is before he passes into Mahaparinibbana, the four kings come and pay respects to him, take their leave. So you have these beings, and in the Pali Suttas with some frequency. And then we also were pointed out that on the left-hand side, down on the ground, was a somewhat emaciated-looking figure on the ground level, and there was a little bit of food in front of it. So apparently the pretas, the hungry ghosts, it's understood that they can't get into the wall of the monastery. They don't have enough merit. And so there was a spot for the good-hearted Buddhists to give them some food and feed them before they go in, that they would think of the pretas. And then it's just very interesting that you go in and you see the future Buddha in front of you, and you see the leaders in the celestial world of the first heaven around you, and you see this reference to pretas in front of you. And I just find this very it's something that one should notice. I think it's something very valuable, because if you believe in parallel realms and beings living in parallel realms because of superior merit and leaders among those realms, this is going to affect our consciousness. This is going to affect the way we hold ourselves, the way we relate to the world. And when you are appreciating the current Buddha's sasana, but you're also aware of the future one, this is also affecting our, I believe it affects consciousness in a significant way. How so? I think it helps us understand that our actions have consequences, and nothing is without consequence, actually. And also there are beings in parallel realms that can see what you're doing. And in terms of like these beautiful qualities that Buddhists try to cultivate, hiri and ottappa, a sense of conscience, I think it's very helpful to know that there might be pretas, hungry ghosts around who are experiencing the result of demerit, and there are devas around who are experiencing the results of merit. There are beings who are rejoicing, and then sometimes there was a bit of a Taoist influence. You might come across a different shrine room that had these kind of magistrates that weigh your good karma or your bad karma after death and decide where you get to go, depending on depending on what you did. And that's also interesting in terms of supporting the development of Hirianottapa, a sense of conscience, wise fear of karmic consequences. And so once you go past the initial hall, then there'll usually be a larger hall, often with three Buddhas, very often Shakyamuni Buddha, our Buddha in the center, but then there will be Amitabha Buddha to his left and Medicine Buddha to his right. And this is, again, interesting in a different way. Buddhas from different universes. Just what this does to one's consciousness, it's like aware of the Buddha of this lifetime, aware of the future Buddha, go to another hall, aware of our Buddha, aware of Buddhas in other universes. And then they often have, in the Mahayana, they will have their bodhisattva attendants. Sometimes there is a shrine to Shakyamuni Buddha, and in the Mahayana, he will have Mahakassapa and Ananda as his attendants. But very often, there will be Buddhas from this universe, Buddhas from other universes, and bodhisattvas flanking either side. And, the future Buddhas. So just it does have a wonderful consciousness expanding effect on the mind. And if you're interested in developing loving kindness for a few beings, many beings, ultimately all beings, having that kind of awareness stimulated, it's a bit like tuning forks, isn't it? It's like you become aware of a Buddha in another universe, you become aware of another universe, you become aware of a future Buddha. And there's something similar in the Shwedagon in Burma, where I went last year, big famous stupa in Yangon. There are 4 shrines. There's the Shakyamuni Buddha shrine, and then there's also shrines to the 3 Buddhas that preceded him, Kakusanda, Konagamana, and Kassapa Buddhas. And I found that also had a similar effect on the mind, just this sense of vast periods of time, and a sense of gratitude as well. Because if you really believe in karma and rebirth, and you understand that in the conditioned world, you have to cultivate wholesome and auspicious conditions so that you have enough spiritual faculties to penetrate to Nibbana, I believe that, then it's to me, it's kind of obvious that we've all been cultivating our virtue with those previous Buddhas. And, maybe we just put food in one of their bowls once, and then another Buddha comes along and we're able to put food in monks' bowls every day. And then another Buddha comes along, and maybe we're able to go forth for a rainy season retreat. And another Buddha comes along. I mean, that is how long it takes. I really do believe that the samsaric perspective, it's not an easy thing to have the requisite merits and spiritual faculties to liberate oneself. So when one goes to these places, I find that I resonate with many of those tuning forks, and I appreciate resonating with those tuning forks. It's kind of fun, creative, consciousness expanding. And then when I did get some opportunities to meditate, I had some nice experiences, but I'm probably not really allowed to talk about them. So you'll have to come and ask me discreetly one time, and then I will. So I hope that something I shared with you about pilgrimage to holy mountains and recollecting bodhisattvas and good efforts of Buddhists past, present, and future may have been helpful to you.